久了。
Well, welcome to our Pacific Region Forum, and thank you very much for coming. I've been looking forward to this for some time, because we have a visiting scholar in the David Mann Center, who is going to share with us the results of her research, which are really, really interesting. Okay, Helen has been engaging in what we call we can call it action research, if you want. That is research which is actually involved with doing things. Some people also call it sort of participant observer research. Anthropologists call it that. I've called it that for a long time. But Helen is looking at the theme of minority journalism, or this is the work of ethnic minority journalism, and she's calling her presentation Observations and Reflections of a Cantonese Newspaper Reporter. So while her official status within the university here is as a visiting scholar, okay, because she comes from the University of Iowa. Yet at the same time, she also worked for a period of time as a journalist in Ming Pao, a local Chinese language daily, one of the three major Chinese language dailies here in Vancouver. So I'm really looking forward to just looking at work in order. I'm really looking forward to hearing what she has to report. And when she finishes, we'll set aside. She knows that the way we usually do our forums is the presentation is done within an hour, and we will have we set aside time for discussion, question and answer afterwards. So, Helen.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. Today's presentation, or actually you can interrupt me at any time. We don't have to wait until Q&A session. I have a lot of observations, but I still don't have enough time to reflect on my observations. So here I'm inviting for your help to help me straighten things out. And a lot of you know things better than me. Some of you are journalists, some of you have been living here for a long period of time, so you know the paper, you know the community. So please help me. And this is part of my dissertation project. The presentation will be divided into 4 parts. The introduction, which is mainly about the research question, my methods, findings, and further research. Immigrant newspaper is a very old phenomenon. I mean, immigrant itself is a very old sociological phenomenon. And the debate on immigrant newspaper always or often center on what is the role of an immigrant newspaper, whether it helps or it hinders immigrants to assimilating into or the so-called host society or mainstream society. But actually, starting from 1980s, researchers say actually there are double roles of an immigrant newspaper. On one hand, it helps new immigrants to assimilate into mainstream culture. On the other hand, it also helps the immigrant community to retain their language and their cultural values. So it's the double roles. We don't have to choose. We can have more than one at the same time. Then my questions will be, what are the factors enabling or limiting an immigrant newspaper to perform such a double role? And then after identify all those factors, or not all, I mean some of the factors that I observed, then my second question is, how does an immigrant newspaper inform us about journalism and immigrant community in general? So what can we learn about journalism by looking at an immigrant newspaper? What can we learn about the characteristics of an immigrant community? So my research methods comprise mainly of 2 parts. One, Professor Walsh just mentioned, action research, or I call it participant observation. That means I work in a Ming Pao, Cantonese daily newspaper here in Vancouver for 3 months in August, September, and October. And I work only 3 days a week. And for the first 3 weeks, I was just kind of following other experienced journalists to see how they do their work. Starting from the 4th week, I do my own report. First is 1 assignment per day. There are a lot of reasons. I can't drive very well. I'm a very lousy driver. Had 2 car accidents in 2 months. Second reason, I can't really type well, and my Chinese typing is very, very slow. And thirdly, because I'm not very familiar, I still have my map in my handbag all the time. Oh, where is Metro Town? Okay, how to get there? That kind of stuff. But starting from the 8th week, I start doing like 2 assignments per day. So usually a journalist in Ming Pao, they do 2 to 4 assignments a day. They are amazingly fast. I don't know how they can do that, but they do that anyway. So that's and apart from doing my own work, there are different types of news, and my job was mainly to cover quote-unquote community news. That's more like media events. I go to interview organizations like Success, or go to their aquariums when they have a press conference, that kind of type. Then I also talked to journalists in the newspaper a lot. They all knew my purpose of doing work in the newspaper is not really to earn the wage of other things. They knew I was doing my dissertation. So we talked a lot, and they are all, my colleagues in the reporting team are very helpful. I ask them a lot of questions, and they always help me to straighten things out. Apart from just doing assignments, I also attend editorial meetings once a week. Usually reporters don't go to editorial meetings. It's the editors and the assignment editors that decide which news to go to, which session, which one should be the lead news. And I got the permission to attend, so that in a way I know what are their criteria or quote-unquote news values to select news. Then I also, in late October, I also do in-depth interviews with journalists involving in 2 big cases that happened during my internship. One is the Richmond Double Murder case. One is the Ling visiting Vancouver case. I didn't have time to interview all. Well, we don't have a lot of reporters in the team, but I interview all reporters that are involved in those 2 cases. Those 2 cases are big news in 2 senses. One is it got extensive coverage from the newspaper. That's for the first case. Like, it's still ongoing because the suspect going to court and court appearance, and the whole prosecution will continue, and they will still continue to report on this issue. And actually, this is the Richmond Double Murder case coverage so far that I have gathered. The other one is Ling, that he is the first Chinese astronaut to venture on the moon, and he kind of visited, well, he didn't visit to Vancouver for the National Day celebration, but somehow his visit become a huge story, and there are insider stories that I will share with you later. And so that's the first feature of those 2 big news. The second thing is, for those 2 news, the reporting team pull out extensive extra human resources to report those 2 cases. Usually, on a good day, they might have 5 reporters on duty. Okay, but in the beginning of the murder case and the Ling was visiting, they pull out 3 reporters just to cover that case alone. So kind of more than half of the reports go to concentrate on those 2 cases. And so these 2 cases, all my colleagues told me I was lucky, because the fake news doesn't happen all the time. And during my internship, I had the opportunity to observe 2. So, and they are different nature. One is kind of murder, brutal things, and one is more like celebrity, celebrating culture, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I am really lucky. So I'm going to skip to all about, well, I will first briefly talk about Ming Pao. Ming Pao opened in Vancouver in 1993, the 4th of November. Yes, actually yesterday I just attended the 11th anniversary dinner. So it has been here serving the community for 11 years. It has a parent company in Hong Kong, which is owned by a Malaysian Chinese, and whose business, including a lot of other industries, and has a close relationship or doing business in China. And it has a few overseas branches, one in Vancouver, one in Toronto. The Toronto one also opened in 1993, and there's one in New York, and there's a very new one in San Francisco now. So that I work in the reporting team. There are about 9 of them. One assignment editor, one assistant assignment editor who is also a reporter, a few reporters. At least two or three reporters are Taiwanese. Some reporters are very experienced reporters working in Hong Kong for more than 20 years. And well, they migrated here, so they pick up the job. And there are also two, not counting me, two like quote unquote local reporters. That means they got their university education here in Vancouver or in Canadian universities. That there are different factors that would affect the production or affect what you can read from a newspaper. Okay, it is Ming Pao is an immigrant newspaper, but it is also a newspaper. So I kind of divided the factors into two categories. One is the factors that are in common with all other media organizations. So there are organizational and professional constraints to shape how we do news. Right? For example, the traffic, that kind of means what kind of space they can have. News is also a business organization. They take care of advertisements first. So the traffic, you all probably should know that, right? That all is, they put all the ads first, and then they are, okay, those are the space you guys can put your news stories on there. Okay, so sometimes when they have limited, like this, they have the whole front page to cover this news. But this, actually the real front page was reserved for advertisements. Okay, so that will be, and it happens to all, print journalism, right? And the second factor would be meeting deadlines, as I said, sometimes you don't have enough news, sometimes you have more than you think you can handle with the space. So meeting deadlines is another factor, and that would, of course, affect how people do news. There are times when, I remember one time it was almost 9 o'clock. Usually the latest day we can give the article to the editor is by 12 o'clock, but it's exceptional unless you do your news at 6 o'clock, and you can have it handed to the editor at 12 o'clock. And it was 9 o'clock, and I was like, I have to write it. I could probably have written 800 words about that piece of information, but I don't have time. I can't type fast, so cut it to 400. Okay, so sometimes it does happen. It happens to me more often than to other reporters, but it happens. There is one characteristic which will be related to one characteristic or one factor that affecting immigrant newspaper is that any other organizations, they rely heavily on news source to tell them what is news, what is important, right? The thing is, assignment editors got facts, got those media advisory all day, and then he or she has to choose what is important. But first of all, he has to be fed with all the information. Okay, so in a way, they have to rely on whether people would let them interview, what kind of information will be reviewed to them. Those are very important. In the double murder case, the Richmond police spokesman didn't want to say anything. He kept his mouth tight. Okay, so then the reporters has to find other ways of doing news. Okay, how to do news, and there also the news flow. How the news flow is the whole work procedures, right? You get the media advisory, you go to report, and you go back, you write the article, you have to let a kind of senior journalist to read it first, then get it to the editorial, get it print. All those would affect how news will be done. But then there are factors that are unique to an immigrant newspaper. First thing is, as I said, Ming Pao has a parent company in Hong Kong, and that kind of really affects how it is operating here. For example, this dim color, green, is a really nice color. It echoes with Ming Pao in Hong Kong. It's because Ming Pao Hong Kong changed their thematic color to this. I like that color. So they have to retain the identity, right? So as the Ming Pao, but this is just more like stylish thing. One thing about it's actually more than 60% of content, not news content, total content, okay, including features, celebrity news, sports news, financial news. More than 60% of content is directly imported from Hong Kong via satellite. Okay, so and there is a huge Hong Kong news section. They just kind of reprint it here. Okay, so that's the first influence of parent companies. And then there is other factors that from parent companies that will affect how things are done. For example, I remember when I first started doing the news, one day the whole newsroom was kind of really nervous about the Sino-Japanese soccer championship in Beijing. And then our assignment editor said, you guys have to go out and find someone to say whether they support Japan or Chinese. The best thing is to find some Japanese, find some Chinese, or find someone who is neither Japanese or Chinese, or a Chinese dating a Japanese or whatever. so that to ask them which team do they support. And we went out the whole day. I was following a senior journalist. We were driving, going to different language schools to find Japanese, okay, going to grocery store to find Chinese. All their reactions, is there a soccer game? We have no idea. Okay, here's Vancouver. Okay, we don't care. But the parent company, it's a big thing in Japan. It, of course, it's not just the game itself. It involves a kind of like political dispute. So it was a big thing in Beijing, in Hong Kong, and so they tried to make it big, but finally it couldn't be that big actually, because people here was like, no, I don't know. I'm a soccer fan, yes, but I don't care about that soccer competition in Beijing. So that will be one thing. The other thing is about organizational culture. Organizational culture could be formal and informal. That formal thing is about policy. Well, policy can be also written or unwritten, right? And then Ming Pao, I think a lot of newspapers has kind of a policy. In Ming Pao, the policy is one China policy. Okay. It doesn't mean it's a partisan newspaper. It doesn't mean journalists give up objectivity. But there's a kind of principle. I don't know whether it is written or not, but it is followed rigidly. And in most cases, we don't even detect it. But there is one case that you can tell. Okay, journalists don't write things up. They don't make things up. They as I say, they heavily rely on news source, right? They write what is being told. But here in Vancouver, Ming Pao maintained a very good relationship with immigrant organizations, including immigrant organizations from China, from Hong Kong, from Taiwan. We try to cover or give them fair amount of coverage, right? In most cases, it's charity dinner, their anniversary, or everyone is happy. Okay, we got news, they got their photos printed. Okay, but there are two National Day celebrations here in the Chinese community, right? One is October the 1st, one is October the 10th for the Taiwanese Chinese. Okay, for the rule, at least as I learned in the newsroom, is we don't change anything that's especially about proper names. Okay, if they call that dinner, whatever dinner, we print that. Okay, we wrote it down, we double check everything, names, titles. But for the Taiwanese National Day celebration, we do have journalists cover on that event extensively as it should be, but it is not called the National Day dinner or celebration anymore. It's called 双十节, okay, the double tent, because it's on the 10th of October. Okay, it's called the Double Tent Festival or holiday. Okay, it changed, and sometimes it's weird because you will have the photo with the banner as the background, say Celebration National Day. But then in the news title or in the news content, it says 双十节, okay, Double Tent holiday. So, and then another thing is more informal. It's an organizational culture, is where how things are done. It's actually affected by what kind of organization it is. We have Taiwanese journalists in the reporting team, but Ming Pao is heavily kind of quote-unquote Hong Kong culture, is a Hong Kong financed or funded company, and more importantly is a lot of experienced journalists, and those in the more senior level in charging the production of news have extensive, they are not like I'm a Hong Kongese, but they have worked in Hong Kong for many years, so they brought with them the journalistic practice of how to do things in Hong Kong here. That's the natural way of doing things for them, okay? And that affects how things are done. Sometimes it's minor, it's maybe just a stylistic thing. For example, Hong Kong news tends to be much shorter than Taiwanese news if we compare the World Journal and Ming Pao. And the other thing is that they usually don't have that much analysis in the news. They just that's why it is short in a way. Okay, just present you the bare facts. Okay, and that's the way things are done. The second factor is the lack of financial and human resources. As an immigrant newspaper, after all, it has to make money. Okay, but then a lot of money comes from Ming Pao is making money, but in the way it heavily depends on advertising revenue, and the advertisers here are very limited, okay? Here is the Chinese community, but there are other true competitors, just in print journalism, and then you still have the Fairchild TV, Fairchild Radio, okay? So, and then, in a way, that's why they have only a few journalists try to cover the whole story. And also there is a lack of human resources. In a way, doing ethnic minority journalism is much more demanding. You have to be bilingual. And in Ming Pao, you have to drive yourself, so you have to know how to drive. You have to. And you have to know how to type Chinese. Okay? A lot of people can speak Chinese but cannot type Chinese. Okay? So the World Journal is looking for journalists, and they have a hard time finding one just because, well, speak both languages, can type, can drive, and well, the pay is not really high in a way. Okay, that's another key problem. Okay, so that there's a lack of human resources, and that affects a lot of things. First of all, then because of that they don't have enough reporters, the news length is really small. Mostly they can cover only Greater Vancouver areas. Okay, anything that happens in interior BC, it's not. They don't think it's important. They just can't go there. They don't have the resources to go there. Okay, so and in that way, like the bird flu last year in interior BC, what they do, they could only rely on mainstream newspapers to provide them with information or even pictures, what they need. So that's what I say, that affects, because then a lot of news they have is, I didn't make that word up, it's a journalist told me that we always just have second-hand news. Okay, second-hand news from the Sun, from the province, or even from Richmond Review. Okay, so Burnaby Review, whatever. Okay, our assignment editor reads a lot of the community newspapers to try to get some insight. Okay, and in a way, the second-hand news is not strictly just talking about content. In a lot of things, it's about the agenda. What is news? What is important? Okay, what is important? They have to pick up from mainstream newspaper. Maybe they would do it from another perspective, but the agenda has been largely set by mainstream newspapers. And as I said, that's not because the Ming Pao newspaper journalists are not capable of doing things. They don't have the resources to do things. And because of all these reasons, and because the majority of the population don't read newspapers, there's a secondary status in the eyes of news source. I talk about that news that is actually heavily reliant on the source, right? But the source, in a lot of sense, like, it's not discrimination. Some of them are really nice, but they simply, there are times I go there, I say, hi, my name is Helen, I'm a reporter from Ming Pao. What? Excuse me? Someone really, can you tell me the name again? Is it a daily or weekly? Okay? Oh, does it just serve Richmond? No, actually we have papers in Calgary. Oh, really? Okay, so they don't know it. And I mean, media contact people, they are busy, okay? They have to take care of reporters from BCTV, CTV, the Sun, the province, right? So that in a lot of ways we become invisible. There are lots of things. It's not discrimination, but we are simply invisible, unheard, okay? We are unimportant, not because they are racist or whatever. No one knows you, okay? And there are times, there was one time I went to SFU to cover the new dormitory opening. I repeat twice that I am a reporter, and actually I carry with me the Ming Pao's name card and everything. But the media contact was so busy, and he twice told me that you have to go aside, don't bother us. He thought I was a Falun Gong member. I have no idea why. All Chinese looks like practicing Falun Gong. So, and that also, with the lack of financial and human resources, a lot of, in a lot of newspapers, you have a feed system. That means a journalist is concentrating on doing one thing, right? You go to city council every day, okay? In a way, then you can establish a very friendly, long-term, even trusting, I don't know if it's trusting, but relationship, a good mutual relationship with news source, right? But in Ming Pao, in a good day, you have 5 journalists covering all stories. In a bad day, it happens, there are only 2, okay? So, in a way, the journalists in Ming Pao are very amazing. They can do all news. Okay, they can do political news, they can do economic news, they can do sports, they can do everything. Okay? So, in a way that they might not even have time to establish a good relationship with the news source. So, they don't have insider tips. Okay? They don't have that kind of useful tips for you to get an exclusive interview, an exclusive story, the latest statistics. Okay, so that's another factor, and that greatly affect how news are being done, and that's why they have to, especially in terms of agenda, they have to follow the mainstream newspaper. Another factor is the cultural value of the mainstream society, which, although it's an immigrant newspaper, that one thing is because then I'm going to give you an example with Ming Pao cover fairly amount of pro-gay, or at least gay-friendly news. Like just myself, I went to cover a story on building queer-friendly secondary school. We went to cover the gay pride parade. We went to cover sex education, safe sex education for gay men on Davie Street. That kind of. One of the reasons is, of course, Vancouver is a gay-friendly community, so that relatively speaking. Okay, so and there are a lot of related media events that got our assignment editors got all those media advisory, right? So he picked out something, he picked up something. So in a way that it also helped to bring that kind of not explicitly, but just the visibility is very important. The visibility of gay-friendly coverage. It doesn't mean like we are advocating something, but when you go to such an event, you interview the spokesperson, of course, they will tell you something that's more like pro-gay message. And we print the story, well, verbatim, word by word, direct quote, right? So in a way, it's kind of to help to sustain and reflect that kind of mainstream values, or certain mainstream values. Another characteristic is that a cooperative relationship with immigrant organizations, as I told you. And that is actually one feature of an immigrant newspaper is they have very friendly relationship with immigrant organizations, such as Chinese Culture Center or the Taiwanese immigrant society, that they have a very good relationship with them. And one key feature of trying to get your news story as the lead story in Ming Pao is you cover success. Most likely it will become the lead story of the community section. So that's important. And this kind of news is in a way a little bit different from quote-unquote we call the hardcore news. And it's explicit. They will help to disseminate the information. We print the telephone number on it. Okay, if it's about an event, an upcoming event, we try to give as much detail as possible in a way to help immigrant organizations to recruit people, to encourage the readers to participate in those events. Okay, and so that's another characteristic. So and that's why and actually that as I say, that's an old tradition. If we look at the older immigrant newspapers, 大汉公报, it's all about community or immigrant community events. The next one is a very simple word, but we still cannot define it. It's called an ethnic perspective, a Chinese perspective. That is for Ming Pao. What is the Chinese perspective? Here is a multicultural society. In our monthly reporting events, our assignment editor, we critically say, actually, we didn't put that much emphasis on the ethnicity or race of either the victim, the witness, the source, or whatever, except if it's Chinese. Okay, so that is in a way, and what is an ethnic perspective is we do that, but it doesn't mean we do that without questioning. I talked to some of the journalists. They kind of feel that if there is a car accident, the first thing they ask, well, they concern a lot of things, but one question as a journalist in Ming Pao newspaper have to ask is there any Chinese involved? Okay, is there any Chinese involved? If not, then you do it. If yes, then there will be other ways of doing things. If yes, then you try to. If it involves that, then it's become a much bigger story. It's like the Richmond Double Murder case. Okay, it's a big case, but it's a much bigger case because it involves Chinese, and there are different reasons for it. Of course, it's a Chinese newspaper. It caters for the community. But another thing I think, and a lot of journalists admit that that's the advantage they have. Okay, an ethnic perspective is an ethnic advantage. When in a lot of times you can only recycle the Sun, the Vancouver, the provinces. When it involves Chinese, that's the time you can read them. Okay, Richmond Review has to quote you. Okay, the Sun's editor might have to call you up to get an interview. Okay, suddenly you are not just invisible reporters somewhere, no one even noticed you. You can just read the press kit, right? That's the time the Sun reporter says, "What did that guy say?" Okay. You feel good about that. So so there is a practical side of an ethnic perspective. Okay, it helps you, and for all these journalists, they are good journalists. They want to do their jobs. Okay, and that's the time they can really do their jobs. They know how to do things. They know how to get to the information. Even if the police don't give them any news, they have a way of trying to get an interview. Okay, so that's and so-called quote-unquote ethnic perspective. The other thing that's peculiar here in Vancouver, and that's why Vancouver is such an exciting place to live and to work, the keen competition between direct competitors. There are 3 Chinese dailies in Greater Vancouver area. One is the World Journal, is mostly, quote unquote, the Taiwanese one, right? There are the other two, Ming Pao and Ming Pao, they are direct competition. Think about the market is small, the advertisers' resources is limited, but there are two daily Cantonese dailies, and they are very, very alike. Okay, that makes the journalist works are not measured by the readers, right? It's measured by other journalists, right? And for Cantonese newspaper, it's not measured by the Sun or the Province. They speak different language. Come on. So they are measured by your competitors, right? The significant others. Or I sometimes jokingly call the thing that me and my colleague is the hidden editor of Ming Pao. And which in the case, actually, the current assignment editor and assistant assignment editor of Ming Pao were the assignment editor and assistant assignment editor of Ming Pao. So they always just exchange the staff somehow. So they know exactly what the other party is going to do on the news. And that's how they do their news. Very, very alike. There are slight difference, and they know each other so well. But that's the way of keeping them to do the news. If things have got that, we must do something, okay? We can't lose, right? It feels bad. And the advertisers, I don't know if the advertisers would notice that. Even one of my colleagues told me, quote unquote, he said, sometimes I don't think it's the readers that care, it's that we do care, because we care about each other, okay? How good we are doing, okay, in the eyes of our fellow colleagues. So that's very interesting, and that affects how these two big cases are done. Okay, there are times that when Ming Pao got an exclusive interview with one of the victims, that Ming Pao had an emergency editorial meeting. We have to do something because we didn't get the interview. Okay, for some reason. Okay, so that's why the next day they have an exclusive photos of the crime scene, which didn't come out for the first 2 or 3 days. But then that pushed them to do things, okay? And they have various secret formulas of doing things. The last one that's significant that affects how work in an immigrant newspaper is doing is the demographic change in the reading community. That especially for Ming Pao and Ming Pao, that as I told you is a Cantonese newspaper with parent company in Hong Kong. So at first it opened in 1993, capitalized on the influx of Hong Kong immigrants. But in these 5-7 years, that Hong Kong immigrants don't come anymore, well, maybe 10 a year, okay? A lot of them return back to Hong Kong. Some of them have been living here long enough, they don't care about Chinese newspaper anymore, right? You don't read Ming Pao, you read the Sun only, right? So, that kind of thing. So they are losing part of their original readers. The newspaper, if they want to survive, they have to capitalize on new readers, which are mainland Chinese readers. But the reading habits are different, okay? Ideology might be different, even wordings are different, okay? So that's how they try to, and they do try to do a lot of things to capture the attention of new readers. And that was a feature or a kind of special features that we had for September, but actually it dragged into November. Is the newspaper tried to find a way to relate the newspaper to the new immigrants from China. So they find things. We were trying to do things like what are the kind of career choice new immigrants can have when their skills and academic qualifications are not recognized locally. So they have to come up with topics like this in order to relate the newspaper to attract new readers. So far, any questions? So how does it inform us about journalism in general? From what we have seen is actually some are not just there. news, there is nothing, from my point of view, from journalism studies, there is nothing that's essentially news. News is, the easiest definition for news is what is printed on newspaper. That's news, okay? What is being printed on the newspaper is actually a dynamic outcome. It's the product of the interplay of different forces, including societal values, news organizations, news workers, all different, and, well, our fellow competitors, okay? So all these are, so is there anything that's intrinsically newsworthy? Like, what is news? There was one time that my assignment editor called me and said, we don't have anything. Well, nothing happened in the summer. That's what he told me. Even the robbers in the set, they take summer vacation. So in the summer, they have to do more things. And there was one weekend he called me. He said, we don't have any news tomorrow, so we have to find a way. And then it was at the end of August. And then she said, well, anyway, school will open in 2 days, so maybe we should do something about like new school year, okay? But we have covered everything from clothes, from books, from whatever. Then we were thinking about what should we do this time in order to fill the space, right? And then she gave me an assignment. Why don't you just interview some parents to ask them, are they nervous about their kids going back to school? So, I don't know any parents. But I did find one parent. We did, and then we wrote the story, and then it became a news that some parents are really relaxed, some parents are very nervous about their kids going to school. So that's something. I mean, we didn't make things up. We did go out to interview people, but that piece of news. So it's a busy day. It's not a piece of news. There are times I went to cover some assignments, and when I went back, the assignment editor said, oh, actually we have too many news today. Well, the project says we don't have enough space. Why don't you just cut the story into a caption story, okay? So that's, but of course, but if we say there is nothing that's intrinsically newsworthy, how about a double murder case? How about a national hero visiting here in Vancouver? Okay, is it intrinsically newsworthy? That, for the Yang Li Wei visiting Vancouver, actually there is a very interesting story. At first, the Chinese embassy was not inviting Yang Li Wei come in. He was just attending a conference here in Vancouver. And 2 weeks prior to his coming, that our assignment editor got the media advisory from the conference organizer, and he was looking at a ethnography conference. I mean, no one cares. And he was saying, well, we are not going there. And he was joking. He said, unless Yang Li Wei is here. Okay? So we didn't know if Yang Li Wei is here. And actually, at the very beginning, the story didn't start until Yang Li Wei came. It starts from 23rd of September. It's actually Ming Pao started the story, but actually it was a National Day celebration. It's a party on, but Chinese embassy was doing an interview. They gave a media advisory to all Chinese newspapers saying, we are going to have big stars, the Olympic gold medalist, coming to Vancouver. You guys have to be there that night on the party, but don't review the news. Okay? So then there are things they try to find a way to review the news a week ahead of the designated time by the embassy. And then, but unfortunately, something happened that the athlete couldn't come here. And then there's all the stories, and they actually here. That's on the 1st of October, and that day we have five reporters on duty. 3 of them were waiting in the airport for the Olympic gold medalist to come. But he didn't come. He didn't come. So, but then, well, as I said, you have to fill out the space, right? You can't print blank paper to the readers. But if someone is not coming, at least someone is waiting. So they print the story of a friend that is waiting the Olympic gold medalist is a female, a young female. Yeah. So they print the story of a guy waiting for her. Of course, he didn't wait. And then they have to start guessing. So if she's not coming, who is coming? Okay. So then here is all the competition starts. Somehow Ming Pao got the insider's tips of who is coming. And so they kind of have a photo of Yang Lingwei on the first day before he actually arrived. And Ming Pao, our newspaper didn't have, so they could only have a photo of the empress. Say, well, you are going to have a surprise, and wait for the surprise. And then here comes all the day of how for all 5 days, all first pages is news about Yang Lingwei visiting Vancouver. Partly, of course, because he's very important, he's very significant. The community here welcome him, but partly also just because it's the competition between the two newspapers. They want to know who can get. Okay, here is something about Yang Lingwei. I think he belongs to military in China. So he's a scientist, but somehow I don't know why he belongs to the military unit. And there was an order from the top that he will not be interviewed. He would not be interviewed with any media here. So they had to try. Okay, here is an order, but we want to interview him. Okay, so there are things, and here comes, it's not just ethnicity, transgender. Who could finally successfully interview Yang Lingwei is a Taiwanese female journalist. And that's something tricky, but it's not hard to explain because Yang Lingwei speaks Mandarin. And a lot of Hong Kong journalists, they can understand Mandarin, but they don't speak good Mandarin enough to interview him. So we got it. And in a lot of cases, that when it involves news like this, that's what they say, female is much better. He could just wait outside the hotel for 12 hours. He did. For 12 hours? Why not? Well, the secret is how could she find which hotels he stayed? It was a top secret, which I don't know. I asked her. Of course, the secret would not be revealed to me. But that's how he got it to interview. Here is the female journalist of our newspaper. She got to interview him, and he actually wrote something. Then we print the story, and there is the behind the scenes stuff. He spent 30 minutes with the whole group, not just him. And then he said, well, I was tired. I don't know. We just talk. Talk about what? And when she went back, the whole team, I mean, it was a fake news. You got the picture with the national hero when there is the top order from the country say he won't be interviewed. You got him. How to write the story. He didn't say that much. And this, of course, is he deserves it, but it's also the whole team helped they choose the picture. I mean, he took a lot of pictures, and he was kind of shy. No, I shouldn't put this one. The other said, you should put this one. It's a kind of witness, right? And then the whole, I don't have time to read, but this whole article is read in a very personal way. It's like a very friendly, right, in an interpersonal way. It's not like usual journalistic genre, like third person tone. It's like, I met this person, what he say, because he smiled, he whatever, okay? The whole team helped to give ideas of how to come up with this story. And it's a good story, and it's got, but there is a dispute between or among the whole community because Ming Pao decides to label that as an exclusive interview with Yang Lingwei. Okay? Other journalists from other newspapers, no, it's a text, it's talk, it's not interview because he would not accept any interview. Okay? So they have a kind of dispute on that, but and that's what I said. Is there anything newsworthy? I mean, if it was not for the keen competition and that kind of top order, with this kind of 30-minute chat of just how are you, how long have you been here, do you like Vancouver, become an exclusive interview. And as I say, in the Richmond Double Murder case, that actually one day with that's on the day, actually, one of the victims, the victim's son had, he was very unhappy with how the news report the whole thing. I mean, we can understand that, right? I mean, murder happened to his family, but the journalists are after him and his family to do the thing, and he was kind of unhappy. And this was, the story was actually our newspaper decided to ask his opinion about journalists, about, I mean, okay, I should say, Ming Pao printed a story that day saying that, or implying that there might be a reason for the murder to happen. And Ming Pao was kind of like, that was not verified, right? Shouldn't be printed. So they tried to call the this family to ask them, and well, as I say, under such circumstances, it's the female journalist who made the phone call, and then the victim's family is very, very unhappy, and he was condemning all Chinese newspapers for chasing after his misfortune, and that also became the front page story, which in a way, even among, I mean, there is a certain way it helps to, but there are kind of also uneasiness even among the journalists ourselves, whether this should be printed or not. Was that an interview, or was just someone's anger? Okay, so is there anything that's intrinsically newsworthy? I don't know. I mean, I hope you will help me to answer this question. But then the second question, how does an immigrant newspaper inform us about the immigrant community in general? I would like to say, but that's partly informed by my theoretical concern, I would say that from what I see and my observations and reflections, and an immigrant community are both. They are a transnational community and a diaspora community. And I would like to define that a transnational community, what I would say is, like for example, that Ming Pao is both, with its concerns or its focus, with its perspective, both focus on Hong Kong, the original home, and the current home. So it's transnational. It crossed the national border. So it's kind of a newspaper is the site where that events from both places are important. As I say, like the Sino-Japanese soccer thing, okay? It happened out there, but it still is kind of important. So that is a transnational community. The second is a diaspora community. For me, a diaspora community is for all the Chinese, in a way. When we talk about Chinese, there are different Chinese. There are Hong Kong Chinese, there are Taiwanese Chinese, mainland Chinese, Hong Kong Chinese, overseas Chinese, Malaysian Chinese, okay? But when the newspaper here, or when the community is here, that here in Vancouver, when they share the same locale, perhaps when one is in Taiwan, one is in China, they don't care about each other, they don't even know each other, okay? But when they come here in Vancouver, and when the newspaper, in a way, maintains a close relationship with all the immigrant organizations, they somehow, I mean, even, I'm just from Hong Kong, I know something about quote-unquote Taiwanese Chinese community here because the newspaper covered that. So for me, that through the chronicle of this event, it will create a diasporic, I hope, or in a way it's more a cultural Chinese community here with Vancouver as the physical location, but with the sense of attachment to people from different places, but now they're here. So that's what I find from there. And so here is my brief report. And then there are things I didn't do, and I should, and I will when I come back from Iowa in December. The first thing is, as I say, like a lot of things that are done or how things were done here is because of the financial constraints, but how the advertising money or how advertising marketing itself affects, especially when the demographic change of the community, of the reading community is happening here, and now it's settled. It's just more and more mainland Chinese, less and less Hong Kong Chinese, right? How would Ming Pao adopt to such change? How do they market to the new reading community with competitors, new competitors? There are now like mainland Chinese newspapers here too. So how they do that, and how do that affect the future work of Ming Pao is very important, and I have to do more research into that. The second thing is about audience research. I didn't have time to, perhaps it's like people, like my colleagues say, do the readers care about all those details? How do they even know that actually there is a difference between Cheng Pao and Ming Pao? Okay, so what kind of differences do they care? What kind of stories do they care? We don't know. And one characteristic of a newspaper or all journalism or all writers, right? They don't know the readers. We don't really know what the readers read. That is a result of a monthly report from the assignment editor. He was trying to tell us what are the topics that sells the newspaper, what are the topics that didn't sell for the previous month, and the whole reporting team couldn't believe the result. Here was the statistical results of the topics that sell, the topics that didn't sell. They were all lead stories in the front page, but no one knows. They just try to find a pattern of what sells and what doesn't sell, but why? We don't know, and I don't know, but that's the aspect we need to look into in order to understand ethnic minority journalism, and that's it. Thank you.
I think we can take a few minutes for questions or comments.
Dr. Cheng, so what is your view of the difference between Ming Pao, Cheng Pao, and the World Journal? If there is a subtle or not so subtle difference?
Okay. I think World Journal is very different in a way. It has a read mainly for the Taiwanese community, and I know they have a smaller scale. There is one thing very interesting for the World Journal is they have their reporting here locally, but their editors are set in Taipei. That's a very interesting fact. So, and for the newspaper, we write the story, the editors give the headline. So there were times they have to fetch, now they just, through computers, they have all the articles back to Taipei. Those editors in Taipei have to come up with the title, and most of the time it works, but I heard there are sometimes that it doesn't work because the editors just don't know things locally. So between Cheng Pao and Ming Pao, one thing that Ming Pao people are very proud of is in terms of advertising. Cheng Pao do take, not a lot of other newspapers, they take those adult children's ads. Ming Pao doesn't, because they lose quite a sum of money. But that's a kind of policy from parent companies. They don't take that ad. And there is, I don't know, because someone wrote a few years ago from in Toronto saying Cheng Pao is decided totally to just steer towards mainland Chinese readers. But I don't know, I haven't interviewed them now to verify that. But what I can tell from my own observation of working in the newspaper, of going out in the news conference and interacting with the reporters from Singapore, is there isn't really much difference on the front page or on the first page. So that's a difference. It used to be a lot about Hong Kong, but more and more is about China. That maybe a disaster, protest, but a lot about policy change in China. And that has a practical side of it too. Apart from the readers, actually even a lot of Hong Kong immigrants here do business with China. So they're concerned about the political and economic policies and views in China. So that's my observation. But that's a good question. I need to look further into that.
Under your observation, is there any difference between Ming Pao, Cheng and the World Journal in reporting Canadian government?
Okay, I have to say I didn't really look into the World Journal, so I can't say about that. But when I look into Ming Pao and Ming Pao in doing Canadian, apart from individual journalists do things differently, right? It's not tied to organization. But in terms of organizational speaking, I don't see the difference. In a way, they are suffering the same problems. They recycle news, a lot of news from the mainstream, and lose a lot of perspective in terms of what is important. They suffer a lot in terms of not being able to build up a very trusted, a long-term, more informal relationship with media contact people, spokesmen from City Council, except from Vancouver City Council and Richmond City Council, because of the large Chinese population there. So in a lot of ways, they could only do what is given to them. They can't get, quote unquote, like the son or the daughter, get the exclusive story. So that's my, yes.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
We have in recent years a significant number of Chinese-speaking MLAs, MPs, and so forth, who are actually representing government. These people must be seen as an easy interview, compared with the non-Chinese-speaking people for Chinese-speaking media.
Yeah.
But the people that they're interviewing are mostly going to be presenting the government perspective, or if they happen to be an opposition party, the opposition party perspective. How do the editors deal with the sort of pro and anti-government perspective? Because in the English language newspapers here, very often they'll if there's a big story, for example, the scandals with in Quebec, the reckless spending of money for the wrong purposes and that sort of thing. That became big news, and it doesn't be considered anti-government news. But do the editors take into account whether this is going to be seen as anti-government or pro-government when they make choices?
I didn't encounter that, but what I think is if they think the source is trustworthy, they are not going to take risk into taking an unconfirmed source into if it's anti-government, anti-Canadian government, let's say. Okay, so they are not going to do that, but it's presented as a fair, and it all also depends on whether how the mainstream newspaper acts. Okay, if CCTV already broadcast the oppositional news, they were going to print it anyway. And CCTV has to take up the responsibility of CCTV, right? Okay, so it's and the thing is they are not vigorously seeking after the oppositional news. I don't think that a lot of news about government is whatever is given to them, then we will write about it, and we quote them. So, and there are practical. I mean, one of the reasons is just the lack of deep system, that no one is an expertise in Canadian politics. Yes.
Is there a working relationship between Ming Pao and the Cheng?
Yes. Okay, that Ming Pao very proud that I don't think it's a long-term working relationship, but they have a very friendly relationship. Especially, I think it's last year they run an issue, special issue on Asian youth together, and there are times that so they are very friendly. I think the Richmond Review editor and our editor, they are friends, and what I heard is the problem is the editor and our editor are buddies too. So they do share things, but and in journalism, what they do is it's not just a friendship, it's a gesture. If I give you a favor, I am expecting a return of favor in the future. So, but at least they work together. For example, the bird flu last year in Imperial Beach, my editor told me they couldn't get the picture. They didn't have reporters there, right? But it was a fake news, so they just call up the province. We need your picture. Okay, so give me a good one. Okay, give me some statistics so we can write the story. But then in return, they will give a favor to the province. And what I know is even in the Richmond Double Murder case, it's the Chinese newspaper who first know about the victim's name and identity, like because the Richmond policeman just didn't say anything. He even gave, I think, purposely wrong information at the very beginning. There were 2 deaths and 1 injured, but he said only 1. And then the reporters were there and they interviewed all the neighbors who can speak Chinese, right? And the Chinese confirmation. All the witnesses told me there were 3 people coming out of the house. It's impossible, just 1 injured or dead. And the policeman at the very beginning didn't even identify. Actually, okay, the 7th day, I'm sorry, the 7th day of the newspaper, the title is An Asian Man Streaks the Crime Scene with Blood. But that's the 2nd day, printed on the 2nd day. That means on the 1st day, they already knew it. And I attended the editorial meeting on that night. They were arguing whether it is too risky because the police was unwilling to confirm anything. But all the women that journalists interviewed say so. So this is going to be something that they think the readers is going to be really interested. They think it's very important, but how about if we are wrong? They had a long debate on that and they decide to praise him. So at first they want to say it's a Chinese young man because that's what the journalist was told, but later they decided it's too risky. So because all Asians do look alike in a way, so they put it into an Asian man. Yes.
Yeah. I have a question about the issues about salary action. Yes, when it comes to the competition between the Chinese background candidate and other background, like non-Chinese background candidate. So it was that the Chinese newspapers always quoted the Chinese candidate, doesn't matter they are good or not, it's just because they're Chinese, how to use that newspaper to deal with things like that. And also there was that Chinese newspaper that promoted the Chinese political forum, and at the same time to promote the Chinese background candidate. Is that true? What's your
Okay. If you ask the editors, they would say no. Okay. But the thing is, they do get more coverage. They do. Okay. In terms of visibility, I would say definitely yes. And there are political, ideological agendas on that perhaps, but there, as I said, practical reasons. That actually David Emerson got a lot of coverage too because his wife is Chinese and he's very friendly. I interviewed him the first day I did my job in the Chinese embassy. I went to him. I didn't even know his last name. I just know his name is David. He was kind of shrinking, and I just go to say, hi, David, can I ask you a few questions? He was really friendly, so we all know that he's friendly. We like to interview him, okay? If there's anything just like even loosely related to playing. so that is, and the Chinese political candidates know that Chinese media is a way for their political capital, so they are very friendly. I mean, they will return your call promptly. They are willing to to pick up the phone at midnight. Okay, they won't get cranky. They will know who you are. If I say I'm from Ming Pao, they immediately know you are. They will say, what? Who you are? Okay, so there are practical reasons for that. But there is another reason is they say, okay, and I think, well, this is unofficial, I cannot represent Ming Pao to say this or any other Chinese music, but from my own perspective, they would say that it's not whether they would support it, but they would try to let his voice be heard. Okay, let his voice, it doesn't mean they support his opinion, but they would let his opinion be heard. So, that's...
Take one more question.
Here's the so-called Muslim, social control Muslim, and the participant observer. What do you see once you read the text determinism? What's the procedure of doing this?
Okay, most of the time it's very routine. It's less than 20 minutes. The routine is first of all, the financial editor would read all the news. It's always dressed up that time. No one knows what he's talking about, but that's it. And then the assignment editor would read all the news of that day, how many stories are there, and then the whole team, the editors, they would kind of allocate which one to go to the front page, which one to be the lead news, which one to go to Canada news, which one belongs to community news. So most of the time, they are more just deciding which one is more interesting to put it on the lead news, instead of having a huge, unless it's things like that, whether it is too risky. Would we be, they were afraid of lawsuits, right? They were even, there was a huge debate on that telephone, as I say. The journalist called the victim's family, right? He was unhappy. He was condemning all the journalists chasing after his family's misfortune. So that's the printer. There was a huge debate on that. But then they decided how to do it. If they just print whatever he said, then it's an objective journalism. They are not making things up, right? So they shouldn't be afraid of lawsuit. Lawsuit is the thing they were really concerned about.
Thank you. Helen is on the road on assignment. She flies out next Monday. She'll be away for a month, but she's coming back, and she's going to be with us for another 3 months or more, 2 months after that. And we do hope, while we're lucky enough to have her here, we'll get another presentation out of her. In the meantime, normally we give the coveted David Van Center ballpoint pen to you, but you're totally computerized. As you made clear, you type everything on in Chinese on the computer. This is not a keyboard, but we and thank you for coming. And just one last announcement. Our next forum on Friday, November the 26th is called Asian Business is Regional, not Global. Asian business is regional, not global. And this speaker, Professor Alan Rutman, he is the Leslie Waters Chair in International Business and the Professor of Management and Professor of Business Economics and Public Policy, Director, Indiana University, Cyber Kelley School of Business. He's a leading authority on what he's looking at is the fact that there is this thing called globalization of business, but in fact, you're talking about regional business because a huge portion of the world's 500 largest firms, 122 are based in Asia. And for the 75 Asian firms with data on regional sales, only 3 are global, whereas 66 have the majority of the sales in the home region. The implications of that for people over here. So you're welcome to attend that forum. Thank you very much for coming.
close to utopia.